You see?
Uh-huh.
I'm still wearing my hat.
That's right.
I mean, SP or SMSP. I'm still clearing the planet.
Well, you were at Flag on this time when you went there for the this meeting. Was there only one meeting, or was there more than one meeting?
Well, we had the major meeting.
It was just one major meeting.
Yeah, that was all that was necessary.
How long did you spend at Flag at that time?
Well, I stayed there for, I think it was 3 days, 2 nights.
And what'd you do during those 3 days and 2 nights?
Well, you know how life is at Flag. You get into Flag and there are 3 people trying to get you to spend money, you know. You got regs all over the place. You can't even walk down the hall without hitting into a reg and going into a briefing. And I had CCHR regging, and I had, well, that was at the Psychbuster conference. All right, back in the first, I did the Psychbuster conference later on. You know, I was in that thing. I was one of the few invited.
Let's stay on this.
Okay,
this
but you know, there were people who wanted. At that time, they were talking about the ship project. There was no ship then.
What year was this?
85.
Okay.
Oh, and at that meeting, they decided they're going to have to change a lot of facts around because they have to protect themselves. I mean, this was like this whole thing about. I was like a DSA. I was like. You know, they had just switched over, you know, recently from the GO. Remember when the GO?
Yes.
Well, when was the GO disbanded again? It was it 83 or 84?
Somewhere in that period.
Yeah, and they had just started with formulating the OSA, the Office of Special Affairs. In fact, the only reason why they chose Fred Hare to be the mission holder of Fort Lauderdale, because Fred Hare used to run the GO, the Guardian's office. And Fred Hare, after they had trouble with Peter Letteries, they didn't want my stats to go down. When they, you know, I showed you some of the stuff on Peter that they...
Tell you what, let's stay with, just, let me ask you...
I mean, we're talking about big, exciting things.
Yeah, I understand that, but,
you know.
But let me just ask you one more question about this meeting, and then let's continue on talking generally about Scientology.
Right.
I mean, obviously, I want to know what you're talking about, but not at this particular moment. What else happened that weekend? Tell me, just list the things for me that you remember about that.
Well, I had some sessions at Flag.
Okay.
You know, I had some auditing done, some sec checking. You know, naturally. There was another intensive, which I forget what it was called, but it was in preparation for this meeting. Like I had to earn my right to be there, really. You know.
Okay.
And there was a lot of that, and there was, and of course I love Flag. You know, I hung around the bookstore, and of course at that time we decided the big game. The big game was to do this. I mean, this was done after that.
That's when that was decided?
Yeah, yeah. They decided that I needed to flow some funds back into the, as fair exchange. In other words, what I was doing at that point, the big game, that was the time the big game was decided upon, and I found that the big game was to be the first person. You see, I had to have a lot of other hats being worn at the time. So the big game was to be the first person on planet Earth to have all of LRH's data. Because how would it be if the person who's going to clear half the planet is missing data? Would that make any sense?
Was it after this that you first began this large transferring of funds to Scientology?
Well, yeah. Well, no, not. I was transferring funds all along for auditing, but not in the way we did it, but afterwards. But we had to do it before in cash. But now we did it by check because I was able to buy products. You see?
Okay.
So once we got this going, they had me go to Europe, to Copenhagen. I did some co-auditing there too, as I told you about the Wall of Fire. And when I was in Copenhagen, I got a lot of missing tapes that they didn't even have at Flag. My job was to comb every warehouse, to find every bit of data, and I helped the org in a way which you wouldn't even believe how I helped the org. You know what my capability is as an organizer.
Mm-hmm.
Every warehouse and stockroom of every major org was in shambles because of that. You know, when they had the problem with the GO and there was a lot of problems on the lines back in the early 80s, everything got screwed up. I'm the one who put every tape, every book in an organizational form. I organized Bridge, I organized Flag, and I organized NEP. Did you know that?
No.
I organized their entire stockroom, warehouse.
Where were these places physically?
Well, the Flag warehouse is a block north of the Fort Harrison Hotel and 2 blocks.
In Clearwater.
Clearwater. Bridge has a big warehouse in L.A., which is near the railroad track somewhere. I know how to get there. Of course, in NEP, they have a warehouse in Copenhagen, which is maybe about 3 miles from the New Era Publications main org, which is a competitive org of Bridge. You see, because of the LRH birthday game, which was started in '83, every org had to be competitive with every other org except for Flag, because there was only one Flag. You know, but like Bridge and NEP are competitors. So like we were playing a big game, who would have the most tapes to sell me? See? And I would be like, the first one who called me would have to be the one I'd buy them from, because it was like they've got to get their acting gear and find out what they have. So what I did is I went to Bridge, and then I went to NEP, and I basically cleaned every available tape out that I didn't have. And there are tapes that I still don't have. Then I entered into another big cycle in '86, where they were supposed to make, Gold was going to get involved. They were supposed to make every tape that I didn't have. And I gave them Golden Era Productions.
What are they?
They're the sound org. They're the ones who produce all the cassettes, and they make the tapes. They duplicate the tapes. So what happened was, because Bridge and NEP got involved, Gold wanted to get involved. So when I got money from the cases, I got like about $85,000 in a short period of time. Fred, was it Fred or was it Peter? No, it was still Peter. No, it was Fred. That's right, it was Fred. He had just taken over. He said, we're going to give Gold a chance to play the birthday game. And what I did is I gave them all the money, and I said, just send me every tape that I don't have. And they said, you already have every tape that we have. Fine, let's make them. So like a big project was going to be started where they would actually physically put on reels tapes that were in archives, which I never even got to see. But the problem is they didn't do them. They didn't make the tapes. So that I became really RC broken at that point in my ethics. I was always being routed to ethics because, I mean, here I felt they were violating the game when I had done everything I was supposed to do. And it was like, it shouldn't have mattered because my bigger game was to clear half the planet. So I had like an ethics hang-up, which really got me stuck in '86, '87, and '88. That's basically what stuck me on the time track. And, I still say that they should have delivered what they promised because I wanted to be the first one. I was just playing the game the way we decided at Flag when I had the big meeting.
The last time we talked, you told me about what you learned about the OT8 level. You want to tell me that again?
As far as being able to go there?
Well, how OT8 is done, where it's done, and what the effects
Okay,
of
the OT8 is truth revealed. It's the first level which a Thetan can operate on as an OT, as a full OT. It is given on the ship, which is called the Free Winds. And
it's a real ship? You mean a boat?
It's a real ship. It's a real boat, which is the place that Presley's daughter went on her honeymoon to do her levels. You know, you read it in People magazine. Remember? You told me?
Okay.
All right. So anyway, I was invited on the Free Winds to do some. In fact, had I not had the altercation with the government, I was scheduled to go to the Free Winds on October the 12th to do my Route to Infinity, Anatomy of Cause, and the Power of Simplicity courses.
What would those have cost?
Those 3 courses would have been about 10 grand. And it would have taken about a month. I would have spent a month on the Free Winds, And I was so, when I was coming back from Spain after I had visited the place where I was hung.
Hung?
I told you about that.
Oh, you mean when you were hanged in the past?
When I was hung in the 16th century in Malaga, Spain, where I didn't want to wear a tie. I found out in my auditing that I didn't want to wear a tie because I was hung, and I wanted to get that, reduce and eliminate the charge on that incident altogether. And I went to the courtyard in Malaga, Spain, where they hung me, and I mocked up the whole visio of the hanging. I actually exteriorized and saw myself being hung, and I was back in the past, Back there, I was the executioner, I was the victim, you know how to do a mock-up
Sure.
processing?